Folks, welcome to this week's edition of Tech Sales Advice. I'm, of course, your host, Chris White, and this is the LinkedIn Live program for technical sales professionals and technical sales leaders. And as I like to say, folks, these conversations, they are by design unscripted, unrehearsed, and unpredictable. And I'm joined today by a gentleman who is no stranger to the pre-sales community. He is no stranger to a stage. He wears what would you call that? A beret? Is that the hat? What's the right?
So I started wearing this, and James Cake has coined the name Professor Pre-Sales. So this is my official Professor Pre-Sales wear.
Okay, and there is nobody who wears a hat quite like Mr. Tom Banton. In case you're curious, he is the VP of Solution Consulting and Enablement at a company called Lean Data. Now, some of you may not have heard about Lean Data, but chances are your organization uses Lean Data. I don't know exactly what the statistics are, but there's some enormous portion of Fortune 500 and software companies that use Lean Data basically as the plumbing for their marketing and sales tech. And a lot of people like us who are out in the field don't even know about them. If you're not familiar with Lean Data, I'm sure Tom would be happy to chat with you. But today we're going to talk about what everybody else is talking about, AI. So Tom, before I sort of launch us in, let me just first thank you for being here. Welcome you. And how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Chris. It's funny how you and I started talking about this conversation a month ago and how fast things have changed even in that month.
I mean, I think it was last week that you and I had a conversation, and then we got joined backstage. And you're like, okay, things have already changed again. So and look, folks, we recognize everybody's talking about AI. So duly noted. Number one. Number two, we're a self-proclaimed couple of old guys who, have been doing this a long time, and that's probably both good and bad, right? We've seen a technology wave or two, which means we've got a little bit of experience, and we may also be setting our waves. And I just want to make it very clear. He and I are neither, or maybe I should say both, 100% in favor of AI and a little bit concerned and skeptical. So this is what we're going to kick around a little bit. Tom, what I'd like to open with is, can you just talk a little bit about some of the tools that you are using and some of the ways in which you and your teams are using AI? Let's start there just to level set a little bit.
Well, the last couple companies that I have worked for have been AI-based solutions. So I have been selling into the AI space for a while. And, of course, everybody uses AI to read RFPs, create RFP answers, things like that. We were given, access to Claude, and literally it went from a few people using Claude to now everybody has a license for Claude Cowork. So that alone has just changed in the last week. I have created, thanks to my friend Ethan Jones, I'm using Claude as my chief of staff. I did a 2-hour interview with Claude, and it picked up some very key things, and it's working on like my OKRs. And we're also using Claude to help build out a demo instance and create demo data, because Lean Data really is sort of like the connective tissue in a real live Salesforce instance. And we don't want to always have to show a live Salesforce instance. So we're trying to replicate a Salesforce instance. We're using Claude and some AI tools to do that as well. I'm using Claude to do activity reporting. That used to be another app to do that. And there's other things that we're doing as well. And I run enablement. I've been using AI lately. Rather than trying to search Google for that perfect image that I want in the class, I've actually been having it create. And it's so I don't have to worry about royalty issues and things like that as well. So and obviously we use AI in our home life every day as well too. But I am really impressed with the content that it's been creating so far.
And by the way, Tom, let me just interrupt just for a moment. So Cliff Barcliff from Richmond, Virginia says hello. Cliff usually attends these. So Cliff, it's good to see you. By the way, folks, if there's anybody else out there that cares to say hello, please feel free to do so. We don't actually see who's out there. We love hearing from you. And of course, if you have any questions for, did you say Professor Presales? Did I get that right?
That's a nickname.
Okay.
I have two nicknames, Professor Presales and Trade Show Tom.
Okay, if you have a question or a comment for Professor or Trade Show Tom, please feel free to ask. So it sounds like you mentioned RFPs, you mentioned Claude. I want to pull the thread on this chief of staff idea just a little bit further, because you mentioned that, and I would love to give you an opportunity to just elaborate. So anybody listening now or maybe catching the recording after the fact, when you say chief of staff, what do you mean by that?
And again, I have to give a shout out to my friend Ethan Jones, who I worked with at Eightfold. This was his idea. He got this from another gentleman who talks about, and I'll publish, we'll do a follow up with some links to follow up. They actually gave me the prompts to create this interview where Claude then interviews you for, it was about 2 hours. Wow. And it comes up and I have the document in front of me. It's like this 6-part thing. Like, what is my role? Who do I report to? Who reports to me? What are my OKRs? What are my team's OKRs? What does crushing it look like in the first half? What are my tension areas? Does a nice summary of each of my team members. And then it sort of looks at your schedule and says, okay, this is a good time for you to be working on your initiative on the demo instance. Now is a good time, to practice learning the new functionality that's in our, that's in our platform as well. And it's doing KPI tracking for me. And then it also, I'm very big about, I like to create my own content. I like things in my own voice, but it does study like, what is your voice? So I actually gave it classes that I have created.
Wow.
And it actually, I think anybody who's following me knows we're doing objection handling March Madness and lean data. And we did this at Eightfold. We've done this at a bunch of companies.
Yeah.
I created the deck for objection handling March Madness for the first 8 brackets and the playoffs, but I asked Claude to create all the new questions.
Interesting.
For what we're going to have in the playoffs, and it actually did a really good job.
Amazing.
Now we're going to take those and add to it, and it even said, "Would you like me to create the deck?" And I'm like, "Okay," and it actually did. Now, it's interesting. So we'll all be using part of that tomorrow in objection handling March Madness playoffs.
Amazing.
And again, I would have spent, easily 30, 40 minutes building out the deck and getting pictures and doing things like so.
Yeah. Yeah. And just so it's, and I'm learning now as much as anybody, moving forward, how will you use this chief of staff? You mentioned it sort of helped you prioritize, but will you go, is it like a project that you've created in cloud and you'll go back to it on a daily basis or on a weekly basis to ask it questions, or how do you actually use it moving forward?
Well, you can come in every day and it sort of says, this is like how to optimize your day, things to accomplish today. And then it'll give you a weekly summary. And then I have it running on the side. So if I get a moment and I want to focus on a side project, it's like, hey, can you go do this for me? So it's always there.
Amazing.
And I've got, you're creating skills or you're creating tasks in there. So I've got skills for creating my enablement content, my chief of staff weekly update, and then also I have the skill for building out a new demo instance project.
Amazing.
My 3 areas of focus.
So Ethan Jones is a gentleman that introduced this to you, and you're going to post after the fact. You'll post a link to some other article or something that gives somebody advice on how to do this. Awesome. By the way, Lindsay Elliott says hello. So I'm assuming that's either a current employee, a former colleague.
A former mentor I mentored her at Presales Academy. And just to show you how small the world is, Lindsay is Ethan's sister. She was a school teacher that's now an SC. So, and she's absolutely crushing it at Litmos. People love her over there because you can imagine a school teacher selling educational software.
Yeah. I mean, Yeah, like fit like a glove. So, well, Lindsay, not nice to hear from you, and glad you're here. All right, so we've covered chief of staff. A moment ago, we were chatting backstage, and you said, Chris, it sort of feels like when I'm dealing with AI, sometimes I feel, and I say this in the nicest way possible. Sometimes it feels like I'm talking to like a salesperson who's trying to oversell me a little bit. Can you elaborate a little bit on that thought?
I mean, as you're doing this interview, it's going to see things like, "Oh, Tom, that's brilliant. Oh, what's a great, I love how you write. I love how your voice." And I'm like, dude, you don't need to sell me. You're already helping me. It just seemed a little over eager to please.
Yeah.
And it was like that sort of new salesperson. And then, it said, "I'm going to be able to create all of this stuff in Salesforce for you." And I'm like, can you really? Do you really have access to start loading data down into our Salesforce instance? And of course, I was on a panel yesterday with the solution exec team about this. And, and again, what it can do is often controlled by the governances your company has in place. So, that's another thing things you have to look out for is what does it actually have access to? What can it create? And what are the governances around it? And how fast are you going to burn through your credits? So it's pretty easy to start burning through AI credits here and, going over your budget.
My fear when I'm using AI, and Tom, this is a thought that I may or may not have shared with you. I know I share this with a lot of people. 15, actually at this point, 20 years ago, I went through a professional career development program. And really, after I went through that program, it's what gave me the confidence to jump into pre-sales. And the program involves a number of aptitude tests and sort of natural talent tests. And one of the things that I tested very high for is what they call rate of idea flow. And it's exactly what it sounds like how rapidly do you generate ideas? And there's not a good or a bad. It just so happens that I was way on the high scale of idea generation. The reason I share this is what I've learned about myself in working with AI is because I tend to process ideas very quickly. When I'm working with AI, I can get way out ahead of my skis sometimes and go way down a path before I realize that maybe I need to pump the brakes and think this through a little bit more. So what's your experience with working with AI? Do you find people sometimes on a runaway train without really thinking through what are we actually doing here?
You and I have talked about this. Ideation is one of my favorite skills. And it's interesting that I didn't test high for that 20 years ago as an SC. But now, as an enablement person, I test very high for ideation. I still want to be the person to have the ideas, and then I want to use AI to flush out the content for that idea. So we're doing really cool things. Like we've created something called Lucy that's helping us write our SOWs. It actually reads all of the transcripts of all of our calls in Avoma. And it points out everything that was said during the sales conversation and make sure that's part of the statement of work. So again, somebody had the idea to do that and use AI to execute how to do a better statement of work. Somebody in my team created an agent called Donatello, where you say, hey, I'm prepping for this demo or I have a presentation with a customer. And again, it goes and it looks at all of the past calls with that customer, all of the data that it can find, 10Ks, and actually delivers a beautiful one-pager on like, hey, these, I'm looking at it as a company snapshot, a demo flow, a KPI map, talk about these things with these people. So, but again, it was my SC that had the idea to create this one-pager to help people prep for a meeting. I mean, I think, the purpose of this conversation was let's not forget the humans inside the AI revolution. So the humans are still going to be the ones to have the ideas and deliver what AI, as you and I have said, we're not at the point yet where AI is buying from AI. I'm sure there are tools where that's happening in markets where that's happening. It's not happening in enterprise SaaS sales though. But the tolerance for a human showing up at a meeting being unprepared is incredibly low. You now have all of these things where you need to be as prepared as possible. And, when we teach our presentation skills class, it's all about making the best use of somebody's time. So how do you do that? By not retreading things you should be able to find online or things that you've learned in past meetings, and instantly solving the issue that is at heart for the customer. So I just, these tools are letting us be more prepared than we have ever been. And hopefully where we're going, building out really cool custom demos for us. And, so we actually have more time in front of customers. One of the things that's actually, I'm unpacking a lot here. You can go where you want to go, but
keep going.
Lead Data has been a company that has essentially been a remote sales culture for a long time, especially, it kind of came out. We are now getting back in front of customers, and we have a mandate to visit and see customers in person, which AI can't do. And it's, again, people know how you made them feel. They remember how you made them feel. And, and it's all about trying to make a connection and understand, yes, I understand your problem. Here's the commitment. And we routinely hear, yes, there's lots of players that do what you do, but your people are better than the other companies.
So I want to pull on this thread of not overlooking the human intelligence in this AI eruption, and something that came immediately to mind as you were speaking. The one way that the individuals that we're working with and or selling to, if I can use that term very, very gently, the one way they know for certain that we're not using AI to communicate is what you and I are doing right now, right? It's the face-to-face conversation, whether that's through the lens of a camera, although in person is far more ideal. But that, to me, that's the true test of, are we still using our human intelligence? Now, before, I knew you were about to say something, but before we pull on that thread, Joshua Garber, I hope I'm saying that right, has put a question on the table, and I want to, because this is in line with what we were just talking about. So the question is, do either of us prescribe to a sales methodology? And certainly we could cover that. He's been training a GPT on the methodology he follows, making it an expert to help enablement and brainstorming. But is that making me one-dimensional or restricted is really where I wanted to go. Joshua, thank you for the question. Tom, what do you think about this?
I've been a big believer in MedPick, for the last couple of companies. And so one of the things that we've trained our AI to do is, when everything on an opportunity is filled out for all of MedPick, that it can automatically move to a different stage. And now you can schedule an SC for it.
Okay.
So we are collecting that data. We do want to know about, paper process, economic buyer. So I think now one of the things that, another cool use I've seen for AI is, we have something called buying groups, that software and technology is no longer being purchased by one person. There's always a group of people. So again, we'll use AI to say, hey, these are the 10 people showing intent in your product. This could be your economic buyer. This could be a tire kicker. This is somebody, but you still need to understand the roles of all those 10 people, and AI can offer you what it thinks it is, but then you need to confirm that.
Love that.
Does that help?
Well, and I'm gonna take that a half step further. For a moment, let's take AI out of the conversation and just answer the question about following a sales methodology. I think the reality is yes, we can try to follow the methodology too closely and be too rigid in doing so. Would you agree with that statement?
But how many deals have been burned because you didn't know the paper process or didn't know the security process, and you didn't start the security process, 5 weeks earlier? So you need a sales process. You need, who's going to sign off on this? What is your, and now one of the questions we have to ask is, Do you have budget for AI? Is there a secondary process to evaluate AI solutions? So just as you know, everybody wants us to sell AI, but you still have those few customers out there that says, we do not want an AI solution. We don't have the governance in place for it. So it's important for us, SaaS companies, to be able to say, this is exactly where, how we can quarter off the AI, or you don't have to use it. But you still need to know exactly what their sales process is to close a deal.
Amen. And if I may, and I think we refer to this idea frequently in sales and what we do, the Goldilocks principle, right? There is such a thing as too little methodology, clearly. There's also such a thing as too much methodology, right? And that's one of the biggest complaints that I hear from AEs about their SEs, is that they're too rigid, they require too much, right? They're not flexible enough, right? And by the way, what do I hear SEs complaining about their AEs? It's just the opposite, right? They don't follow a process. They're not, so we sort of need to meet it. So I think happiness is somewhere in the middle. Now let's come back to Joshua's question. My opinion is that AI is only going to get you there faster. Meaning, if you're erring two sides one way or the other, you're only going to err further on that side.
But even if AI is filling out your sales methodology, you need to validate it. I don't, because again, you don't want to believe that this is exactly the process that they follow, or the person that signs the checks, or their number one key requirement. I still think you need to look somebody in the eye and say, we understand this is one of your key requirements. Can you tell me why it's important to you? Going back to what you and I teach all the time, discovery and forming connections during discovery.
Love that.
But if you were an SC and you just sat and you were reading your AI notes and you never looked at the camera the entire time, how likely are you going to want to buy from me?
Yeah, not very.
So you've got to, have your notes, understand them, but make those connections. And obviously it is always easier to do them in person than remotely.
Yeah. Amen. Tom, let me push our pause button just for a moment in case we've had anybody just join in the past couple minutes. Folks, I'm speaking to Tom Banton. He is the VP of Solution Consulting and Sales Enablement with a company called Lean Data. If you're not familiar with Lean Data, chances are your organization uses their solution and their product. They are literally the plumbing under the marketing and sales tech of literally thousands of organizations across the globe. We're talking about the, quote, human element, the human intelligence in the AI explosion, and the importance of not overlooking the human intelligence. So, and Cliff, I see that you made a comment here. Let's see what Cliff had to say. Well said. To err is human, but to really mess things up, you need a computer. Replace that with AI. Yes, and that saying probably is about as old as you and me, and I think Cliff is sort of in the same age range. Tom, the next question that comes to mind for me is, what does, quote, overlooking the human element when using AI look like? What's a symptom? What's a signal? What's an indication that maybe we're overlooking or not remembering the importance of the human perspective?
I think if you can't get a response, if you haven't built up that either, coach or person inside the team that you will at least give you an answer when you're trying to close a deal, then you haven't formed that relationship. You don't have the, ideally you should have a relationship with your people that you can call and say, hey, look, my job's on the line. I need this for this quarter. It's okay if you tell me we can't close this, but but I need to at least I need to have an answer. Salespeople are pushed so hard to be 100% accurate in their forecasting. And if your customers are ghosting you, It's because you don't have that good relationship where you can't lean on them to at least get an honest answer. I'm not saying that's always the case.
Yeah.
But you need to, your management's going to be pushing you. What's your number this month? What's your number this quarter? And you need to be able to call into the company, email into the company, to get that information. And it's always going to be better if you can call, text, hook them up on Slack directly, Teams directly, as opposed to just firing off an email and hoping for the best.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't developed that human connection, as we've been talking about, you're not getting. First of all, you don't actually have a connection. You don't have a seat at the table, and you're probably not getting the real information. Another thought came to mind. So you're responsible for sales enablement.
I've actually just picked up all of go-to-market enablement, so we're now doing CSMs as well.
Okay. Which and that's a whole nother conversation. One would argue that there really is no separation. It's just revenue enablement. Really is what we're talking about, right?
Correct.
So two-part question. Number one, how are you using AI to engage in enablement and do what you're doing? We've talked a little bit about that, but I'm curious to dig into that a little bit further. Number one. Number two, how are you encouraging the people that are going through your programs that you are enabling? How are you encouraging them to use AI?
I am very lucky that the gentleman who works for me that runs enablement, give a shout out to Caleb. He is on the front lines of our AI, and he's the one who actually created an amazing ROI calculator for us. That we used to have a human to do ROI calculation, or you would bring in a big six consulting firm and they build out this fancy spreadsheet. Caleb built it on his own, and it's, and we're getting great results on it. So there's a couple things. First off, he runs a session like every Monday, Wednesday, and it's called, Claude Tinker Show and Tell or something like that. And people come on and they say, hey, this is what I built, or have questions on it. And we've got a few people in our company who are like the AI gurus. We'll usually are on and we'll get the answers for you if you have questions, but it also gets people excited. Hey, look what I built. And then in our last company meeting, they actually brought 5 people on from 5 different departments to show the AI tools that they built. And the gentleman on the SC team, Rob, who built Donatello, actually showed Donatello. And then he made it one better and made it so that any of the SCs can reuse that skill. So amazing. We have a come on and learn about it, show us how you're using it, we'll help you figure it out session. And then we have a showcase session in a company meeting. That's how we're training the whole company on AI and getting them excited about it. But one of your questions, the other thing, how are we using it in enablement? Well, I mean, we use tools like GTM Buddy that does call analysis. We use Avoma that does call analysis and things like that as well. We did just run a big initiative, but with something we call the solution value framework, that I need to certify every go-to-market employee that they understand our framework.
Wow.
And we don't just want to make it so that the certification is the same for an AEM versus an AE versus an SC versus. So we're working with the managers. How do you want to certify your people? And then most likely it'll be some type of role playing or video thing where we do use AI to say, did they capture all of these points?
Yeah.
And like I said before, we're using, Claude to help build the content we deliver in our enablement classes.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned, at least I thought I heard you mention call assessments or call reviews. So what's going into that? Are you ingesting transcripts and then applying some sort of rubric or some sort of competitive analysis? How are you actually using the calls to help teach or train or enable the teams?
So, right now we're using the calls to capture all of the information to pass into the statement of work. That's one way we're doing it.
Okay.
I like to routinely monitor the calls of my team especially if I couldn't do the front side of the prep, just to see how they are. And again, I want my that's where, we also talk about, not forgetting the human in there. There's a human that represents the salesperson in a sales cycle, but there's also the human that is your manager. So I don't want AI to watch one of my employees' calls and give me a summary. I want to watch the call. I want to give my own summary because I'm going to look for things that are different to me. I'm going to look at things like eye contact, context. Did you make a connection? Did you answer the question? Did you, so we can use it to say, yes, they talked about the 4 stages of the solution value framework. Yes, they had a great objection to AI, but I still want to go in and watch it myself.
Interesting. So you're not ready to hand over coaching and assessing calls yet to an AI coach, if I can use that term.
I am not.
Okay.
I know it's out there. I know it's getting better. I know it's, just like AI interviewers, AI SDR. Have you had a conversation with an AI SDR lately? It's amazing how fast they're coming along, but
amazing. Yep.
But at the end of the day, I don't want, if I need to coach somebody, if I need to give them feedback, constructive or positive feedback, I want it to be my feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
the human management layer. Now, I'm also lucky I have 6-7 people on my team. If I had 30, which we could get to that areas, then I probably would need AI to assess those 30 people.
Right.
If you're doing, smaller SMB sales, you've got SDRs, you've got, SDA, I can see where you might have to rely on that.
Yeah. 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 Tom, let me just push pause real quick one more time. Folks, I'm speaking to Tom Banton. He is the VP of Solution Consulting and Sales Enablement with Lean Data. It may be a company you're not familiar with, but chances are good your company, in fact, uses them. They are the plumbing underneath many, many organizations' marketing and sales stacks and their sales tech stack.
I mean, our customers tell us we are the connective tissue between sales and marketing.
Love that. Love that. And everybody knows that I love a good analogy. That one sticks 100%. There's a few more questions that I want to, a few more threads that I want to pull. One is related to what we were just talking about, which is you were saying that you are still a tad reluctant to use an AI to, let's say, coach or assess calls and coach. You're using AI to review transcripts to help produce SOWs. Sounds like you're using AI to help respond to RFPs. One of the things that I am hearing consistently from SE leaders is that they are getting pressure from executive management, from the board, to quote, do more with less because of AI. So first of all, are you seeing that as well? Are you hearing that as well? Number one. And number two, if you are, whether it's within your organization or maybe other SE leaders you're talking about, how can SE leaders, quote, do more with less in addition to what we've talked about with AI, or have their people do more with less with AI? Or have we already covered everything there is to cover?
So I'm not being pressured to reduce headcount and replace it with AI. But, SE, there are lots of new companies out there that support pre-sales teams for activity tracking, for, demo recording, sending, any sort of demo automation tool, I don't have the budget to go buy those tools, but I do have the budget to create those apps inside AI.
Wow.
And again, my very first time with Claude, I asked it to read the calendars of my 5 solutions consultants and give me an activity report for all demos, all discoveries, all that didn't have a prep meeting. I gave it very clear instructions and it came back with, here is your March report.
Wow.
there are whole apps based on that. Like, that's something that, okay, rather than going to try and buy a tool that did that or build out something fancy in Excel to dump all that in or try and, I did that in a few minutes. I know people who are building some really, like using Lovable to build some really cool apps. So I can see, like, again, I haven't got into building apps yet, but I know my company is. But again, rather than trying to buy a tool to help this, I think we'll be creating tools inside to do these tasks.
So, and this is why I always open these conversations saying these conversations are by design unscripted, unrehearsed, and unpredictable, because we've just wandered into a topic that I didn't expect we would, but I'm inclined to pull on this thread, and that is, if you as an SE leader and a sales enablement leader don't have the budget to buy, but you do have the budget to build, and frankly, the tools to build, how many other organizations are either already doing that for other reasons and or will be doing that for other reasons? And if so, and if the answer is significant, how concerned should those of us in the software industry be that things are going to be built more and more with AI instead of bought off the shelf, quote unquote, off the shelf?
Chris, you and I have been doing this a long time. I like to say we've earned these gray hairs. The build versus buy question is something that we have dealt with our entire careers.
Amen.
And we're certainly seeing it. Now it's just build with AI versus buy. And yes, there are some solutions that are going to have to reinvent themselves, or, but it is a real thing. There's as somebody who's not an expert on AI, who's only been playing with it for a month, I'm already seeing some amazing things that this can do, like the ROI calculator. I had a value consultant that I really wanted to hire and bring into the company, and we and again, this is a case where it's like, no, we'll do this with AI.
It's such an interesting dilemma, for lack of a better term, for me, because I do think that, and you mentioned Lovable, I do think that tools like Lovable and other AI, I think Claude Code is another one, it is democratizing the ability to build apps. I think one of the things that concerns me, frankly, is, are these apps, or as these apps become the foundation for critical business operations, critical business data, are they being built architecturally sound? And if it's living in the Lovable platform, for example, like, can it actually handle enterprise level processing, enterprise level data? And are we putting ourselves at great risk by shifting enterprise activities to these home built apps?
I heard some horror stories yesterday about things being published that wasn't data that was supposed to be public. So you do have to be careful what you give your AI access to, and what it can create, and who can see what it creates. And you and I shared that. We'll share the article by Liz Fosteling about Stop the Slop. But you need that, even throughout the whole AI project creation, you need that human in at every step to sort of make sure it's doing what you want, guardrail it, check it, edit it, keep it. You can't just give it a bunch of code, go away, and come back. You need to sort of check it. And again, at least that's where we are now. Every day is a different day. But we'll make sure we link that article by Liz, because I thought that was a great article.
And it's interesting. Again, when we were talking about this idea of the importance of human intelligence, I think we were both thinking in terms of when you're literally interacting with one of these tools, Chat, Gemini, Claude, what have you, we need to maintain agency, as I like to say. But the other human element that this conversation has brought to light for me is the big picture perspective, and maintaining clarity around, are we getting too excited about the sexy new thing that was just built and lovable, and forgetting that we may be potentially putting ourselves at risk, right? So it's having a much more broad and strategic perspective on how and where we are using AI. Is that a fair way to say it?
I think I want to phrase it differently.
Please.
I think every human interaction you have now needs to be more human. So if you get the chance to have a meeting with somebody, you take advantage of that time. You get to know that person. You don't make it about you or the company. You make it about them. And if you get the chance to go meet with them in person, then you ask them for coffee or lunch or dinner after. Again, all they can say is no, but you do whatever you can to make the human interaction as human as possible. And you don't look at your phone. You don't look at your iPad. You have a one-on-one conversation, and you just are curious about who they are as a person and who they are in the company, what they do for the company, what they like. You've got to take advantage of all of the human time that you get.
No, go ahead.
No, and again, just, use AI to come to that meeting with as much context as possible, be as informed as possible. But then, just like this conversation, let it go in a natural direction.
Yeah. I first of all, those words land so powerfully for me. And I sure hope it's not just a couple of old guys sort of reminiscing about, quote,
back in my day.
Right. Exactly. I hope it's not just a couple of old guys that are just completely totally out of touch with reality. You're 100% right. And it's interesting, Tom, as you were sharing, literally something that I've been doing over the last 24 hours or so. I'm going to be out in San Francisco for Demo Fest later next month, and I'm flying in a couple of days early. And I've been reaching out to people on LinkedIn who I know live in San Francisco to say, hey, it occurs to me that we've worked together, but we've never met. I'm going to be in town for a couple of days. Do you have some time? And without exception, like boom, 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 people respond. It's like, oh my gosh, yes, of course. Let's have coffee. Let's have lunch. Let's do this. Let's do that. So you're right. And so I just hope, I'm going to say the younger generation, and I say that in the nicest possible way. I sure hope that is that's the mentality that they hold on to, because I couldn't agree more.
I love trade shows. It's a chance to go out and meet people. We just promoted an SDR to an SC on my team. And as part of that younger generation, he's the first person to go out and shake someone's hand and have a conversation with them and get to know them. And, and he's also the one building all the really cool stuff on my team. But when you get him in person, he's all about just making that connection. So that also, I have faith in the generations coming after us.
As do I. Tom, believe it or not, we've been at this almost 45 minutes. The time tends to fly very, very, very quickly. I want to sort of wrap things up here shortly. We've talked about a number of things. We've talked about how you're using AI. You talked about your, quote, chief of staff, which, by the way, I haven't done that yet. So clearly that's something that I'm adding to. I probably need to tell my chief of staff to remind me to create a chief of staff. Is probably what I need to do. And then it might actually happen. We've talked about the human element, not overlooking the human element. As you thought about today's conversation, was there anything else in particular that you were really hoping we would touch on that maybe we haven't? Is there any insight or important message that you think the community at large, if I can use that term, needs to remember or give some consideration to?
I think we've covered it all. I mean, we just had a great win where this company loves POCs. I've been told to run away from POCs my whole career, but here at Lean Data, bring them on. We love them. And we were in a head-to-head POC, against another company. And yes, using AI to build cool things around it. But at the end of the day, we won the POC, and they said it's because your people took the time to understand and make us feel like you really understood what our requirements were. So you do, use AI to get all of that context and navigate efficiently, but especially if you're in larger enterprise deals, complex deals, it's going to be one at the human level too.
Amen. One of the things that I like to say in the workshops that I run is that I sincerely believe that when organizations are looking for solutions, and usually they have options, when they do have multiple options that are similar in nature, similar in capability, I believe they tend to go with the group or the team, the individuals that they feel understand them and their situation the best. Because if I feel like you actually get me and you understand us, that gives you the best opportunity to help us. And I think this is exactly what you're saying.
Correct. And they also want to see a team of people that seem to get along and work together.
Man.
Well, so that's why you have to be sort of a cohesive team as well. Not a bunch of people who showed up to a meeting. But now we're getting into enablement. Here's my favorite topic.
Exactly. So I have just a couple more thoughts, and then we'll wrap things up. The landing gear is out, the runway is in sight. We'll be landing the plane here in just a minute. There's one very specific question and then sort of one broad question that's on my mind. The very specific question, we've talked a couple times about the ability to use AI to be more prepared going into a meeting. Is it possible, or is there a risk that because now we can do more research, we can do more homework, we can arm ourselves with more information, is there a risk that we're going into these meetings too focused on what we want to say, too focused on wanting to share all the information that we've gathered, rather than having that sort of in the bag at the ready, but focusing more on them? Or am I putting too much of a concern on that?
No, I think it all goes down to discovery. And yes, you can have all your research ahead of you in discovery, but you should start with, this is my understanding as to what's important to your company, to your teams, to your, is this still the case? Can I hear it from you that this is and then what's important to the company, but then also what's important to you, the human, because at the end of the day, you're the person that's going to vote for my solution, not the company. So don't go in asking questions. That's why I say, even if the SC or the AE already asked the same question, hey, I know you told the AE that these are the things in your tech stack. I just want to confirm, are these still the things in your tech stack? Is there anything new coming in the tech stack? If you could have anything. So, you've still got to validate it before you assume anything.
Love that. And something that people talk about a lot these days, I'm sure you talk about it with your team, is showing up with a point of view. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we're talking about, right? Show up with a point of view, but don't pretend like you have all the answers.
And that's really our job, is not to explain how something works, but how your life is going to be better with our solution. And we should have an understanding of what best practice is on that solution. So when they say, well, hey, you could do this in 2 ways, what do you think is best? You shouldn't say you could do either. You should say A will work for you because of this reason. Yeah. You've got to have that point. And then people are really looking for us to give our advice as to, this is how I think you will be successful.
Yeah.
This is what was successful at the company down the road that looks just like you.
Yeah. 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 In fact, I had a gentleman on this very show say, the recommendation is mine, the decision is yours.
I like that.
But we have to have a recommendation, right? I have a recommendation because I'm the expert, but ultimately the decision's yours. Okay. And by the way, Joshua left a long content or a long comment. Joshua, thank you for tuning in and sharing your thoughts. So Tom, this is what we're going to close with. Two-part question. What excites you the most about AI? What makes you most enthusiastic about AI, part one? And what terrifies you the most about AI, part two?
So again, we need a live system to show our product in the best possible light. And so a lot of times we show our production instance, and that's not good. And I've struggled to get a really good demo instance built. And now I think I see a light at the end of the tunnel by using our people and product, which are great, but then also some AI tools. So I'm excited to have a fully baked, because again, our product touches everything inside Salesforce. So you need people doing daily tasks inside Salesforce to make it look realistic. And again, as we know, there are plenty of companies, and we've talked to them, that do this demo automation tools, but they're not inexpensive and they can do a piece of what we needed to do. So I'm excited by that. The AI is going to help me with that. I do think, using it to help us prep for meetings and getting them more aligned is also a great use case. Did you like that answer work for you on the what I like?
100%.
What it's like, how soon are we going to be in the matrix? I guess that's the far extreme as to what makes me nervous. Is you see all these power plants, you see all these, and I am worried that some companies that we know and love are going to go away because they're going to be replaced by AI tools. I think it's going to be, I think we'll always need SCs to sell certain kinds of products, but we still don't know what the result of the AI revolution is going to be on a lot of the companies that you and I know very well and love and have worked with.
Yeah.
And, so that's, I guess, what makes me nervous, because it is coming on really fast, much faster than I understood, 90 days ago. But but again, it's not solving everything, and you just got to stay focused.
Yeah, it's interesting as I reflect on the very question I asked you, and I've been asked that question, and I've probably answered in countless different ways. But as you were reflecting, the thought that just hit me is, what excites me the most and what terrifies me the most is actually the exact same thing. And that is the unknown and what's possible. What's possible and what will more than likely be probable is what excites me the most, but it's also what terrifies me the most. So,
I think, let's say if I had to hire for my team, 5 years ago, I would have been looking for somebody who knew video editing, because we were all getting into the video demos. So I wanted somebody with editing skills. Now, if I was hiring, I would want somebody who had AI build experience with apps and, and things like that as well. I would want that on my team. So I do think that people that are coming up into the industry, they need to, fully embrace what we can build with it and help leaders like myself and others. Okay, I'm going to come on your team, and these are the things I can do for you.
Yeah.
But then we'll also teach you how to sell the things you make, or our products as well too.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was speaking with a sales enablement leader, just like very similar to yourself, with another very well-known brand. And he said something that I won't soon forget. He said, honestly, Chris, I've spent most of my career training people. Like, that's what I do. I train people. Now I'm training agents. Now I'm training AI as if they're people. And in essence, they're digital employees. I think we're all going to become trainers in a sense. We're going to become trainers of AI, and the ability to articulate guidance and instruction, to your point, that's going to be the skill set, which is for me. So, final word from you, sir.
As of right now, no one's replacing humans with agents yet. So,
Amen.
Know what your strengths are, play up your strengths, play up your relationships, keep making new relationships, human relationships. It was so easy to almost create a relationship with my AI chief of staff the way it was talking to me. I'm like, okay, this is slightly addicting. I need to step away from this. You can see, yeah. So just focus on your human relationships.
Amen. Well, and you referenced this very conversation. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be inviting, quote, an AI avatar to join me for a conversation on this very show. Although that might be interesting to try, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I will, for as long as I'm doing this, I will always be inviting humans like yourself. Tom, you are such a delight to speak with. You are such a gentleman and a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much for being here. Safe to say that you would welcome anybody who happens to catch this, who doesn't know you and or is connected to you, that you'd welcome them to reach out and connect.
Absolutely. Thomas Banton on LinkedIn, and we're actually doing cool stuff at Lean Data to help SCs and AEs schedule. So I got a post about that. And Chris, the last time I had this much fun was the call you and I did. How many years ago was that?
Gosh, it's been at least 3 or 4 years, man. Before AI
that was the last time an hour went by this fast.
So, well, it has been fun. I do enjoy it. By the way, hang around backstage just for a second so we can part ways more appropriately. Everyone else, thank you so much. If you hung around to the end, thank you for being here. If you've caught the recording and you're still here, thank you so much. If you want to be alerted to these, just follow hashtag, or I think it's just Tech Sales Advice. And if you want to learn more about the work that I do, you can go to techsalesmastery.com. And of course, connect with Tom. Thanks all. We'll see you next week.